All right, my internet, I just tried switching the networks. Hopefully that'll help. Anyway, today we're going to talk about NIH xTRAIN terminations. Last week, just to recap, if you weren't here, we talked about the appointment process. And then today we're going to go through terminations, and I'll talk a little bit about amendments and reappointments. Reappointments are basically an easier version of the appointment because you have all that information in there. You're just reappointing them. So, and that's pretty straightforward, but I do want to touch on that at the end of the presentation. So last week we went through like, what is NIH xTRAIN for those of you who have never been in here. It's an ERA Commons, and it's a way you can appoint trainees and terminate them that are on your institutional training grant, or they have a NERSA fellowship. This could also apply to like R25s, KL2s, KL1s, not just your T32 series. So last week, I just walked you through the appointment process, what you have to do to kind of get started, when you have to have an ERA Commons ID for yourself, you have to have one for your trainee. There's just a lot of things, a process, making sure that they, if they have prior NRSA support, knowing that there's a couple key things I went through that you need to know before you start the whole process. So that presentation is online if you need to refer to that. So this was the actual processing. I think this is a really antiquated little figure that I found online, but I think it's perfect how it talks about like the whole process, and you can visualize it. This is being the appointment process, which is going to be slightly different than the termination process. But basically, it starts with the PI. They initiate it. Sometimes you have delegation for them. They get the electronic form gets sent to the trainee. The trainee does their info, sends it back. The PI reviews and then submits it to the agency. So that's the appointment process. Now the termination process, there's going to be an extra step in there for a business official. So I'll go through all of that. So termination notices. So this is most of you are doing a T32, but you could be doing a T34 or T35, someone for short term or undergraduates. Or if you have an F fellowship, which a lot of you may have a pre-doc or postdoc fellowship on your desk. So the interesting thing about this is only the business official can submit the termination notice to the agency. And one thing that's really important is you should always, if you are the business official and you're submitting this to the agency, you need to verify the stipend amounts that you cross-check them with the UCSD financial system and make sure that they got paid the correct amount. Because if we're telling them, we paid them $50,000, then it should say that on our ledgers. Now, the interesting thing is, if you're I was doing an R25 the other day, and I was like, why can't I submit the termination notice? Well, only the PI can do that. And it's just one of those quirky things between, the two. They're both termination notices, but since they're different mechanisms, it's not quite the same. And there's no business official involved for the career education series. I don't know why, but that's just the way it is. So sometimes it'll kind of just throw you for a hiccup going, wait, I thought this had to go through the business official, and it doesn't. So even I forget these things. So I can't expect anybody to remember that. So initiating a termination notice. Generally speaking, if you had someone and did say 6/30/2023, and now we're 8/3, you're going to get a little email notice, or the PI or the trainee will say the person needs to get terminated within the next 30 days. Now the key word here is initiated. It should be initiated within 30 days. Because what about if you run into the problem that it's initiated, it started, but then you can't submit it because the incorrect amount is on the termination notice. So some people think this is to be like completely finalized, finished within 30 days. That's not necessarily true. However, that may be really good practice, but it's not necessarily true. You don't have to have it can be completely done. I've had, you know, terminations come back that weren't done like years ago, and NIH will come back and say, can you fix this? I mean, you're not going to get penalized, but you know, in general, obviously you want to be, you know, a good steward on your desk of the monies that you're in control of, right? And all this processes, and you want to be on top of it. So this is the termination process. And so you can see here, you go from the PI, and then they route it to the trainee. The trainee fills in their scientific information, the other information. Then the PI routes it to the business official. And then the BO routes it to the agency. Of course, this is for T32s. So the big thing here is BO now, or the business official, I should say. So the business official, you may or may not be the business official. It depends on your role. You may be the delegate here. I don't know exactly what your role is, but you could have different roles here. And then of course, I just put the, you know, the different types of statuses here, which are part of that whole entire process. So initiating a termination notice, you're going to have to log in. And the great feature with this new area comments or the xTRAIN revamp is you could just type in a PI last name. You don't have to like know the entire serial number or whatever from the grant. You could just type that in, which is really nice, and it will pop up. You'll see, you know, depending whether your PI has more than one training grant, you can see here's what I'm looking for, and I can go ahead and click on the trainee roster, and the trainee roster will come up. Now, I learned something like new recently. I don't know if you guys all know this, but these three little dots are called an ellipsis. I did not know that. I just thought they were called three little dots, but so this new module within when they redid the VAMP back in March, they use these ellipses a lot. So you either be clicking on the hyperlink name if it's hyperlinked, or the ellipsis. So you go ahead and then you go ahead and hopefully you'll see initiate termination notice. And click on that. And then the termination notice, I had to split this into several screens because it's a very long form, but you'll go ahead and you can see up at the top there the budget periods. You know, just kind of want to verify all of that, and then the termination date. You're going to confirm the termination date, which will be whatever you put in your appointment form. You put an end date in that appointment form, so that is that should be pre-populated, but it may or may not be. You may have to adjust it for whatever reason, which then that could get you down. Then you could be going down the road of getting into an amendment. And then you're going to need to select your business official. So generally speaking, it could be someone, you know, in your contracts and grants office, for your department, it's usually at a department level, I should say, maybe your research administrator. They will be your business official. So you'll go ahead and click on them, and sometimes that is a challenge in itself, just trying to figure out who the business official is. But but there is a lot of people in there, so you want to just make sure you're routing it to the correct person. And then, you know, you're going to want to confirm the stipend amount. This is taken again from the appointment form. How much did you say that they were going to receive? Scrolling down, there's parts of this that you won't have to do. You're just initiating in the termination because you're going to route it next to the trainee, and they're going to fill in their scientific report. And there's also an area in here for the trainee to update their current position and their mailing address where they're going to be moving on to. So I would highly recommend it, and this is a should. They don't have to do it. It's not required, but it's really nice if they do, because then it will populate their area commons profile ID, which then populates xTRAIN. So it comes full circle, because you're going to need that information for the renewal or the RPPR. So it's really nice if they know this. I would highly, recommend them going ahead and putting that in here. But again, things change and you don't know. So that you can either save this as a draft if for whatever reason you're not ready to go ahead and start routing, or you can go ahead and route to the trainee. So I usually try to put a comment in there, and a reason why, and I remember I said this last week, because you want to make it personal. You're going to get those very impersonal emails from NIH, and everyone ignores them, at least I do. And so if at least if it says something personal, like, hi, Sarah, could you please fill out your termination paperwork, and then, hit send and then route to them. Sometimes I feel like that's a little bit of a prompt, or, parallel, you could send them an email and say, hey, you may have just gotten an email from NIH. That's just me starting your termination paperwork, since we're coming to the end of your training on the training grant. So sometimes they need a little nudge. I know I need a little nudge sometimes. So you submit it, now you're going to route it to the trainee, and it's a success, yay, and now it's in the trainee's queue, you can say. Now, the one thing I don't think I showed you last week was they have a really great routing history. You can see exactly when it was routed to who, and then which queue is it in, and where are you at in the process. So that's always very helpful when you say, well, someone goes, well, I don't know, it's in the business official's queue, but I don't know who the business official is. Well, this would show you, oh, it's actually in Jill's queue, and she's just been sitting on it. Again, she needs a little nudge to do this. So sometimes you have to go in there and nudge people. So now we're switching gears here. You have done your part as an administrator, or the PI has done their part as, initiating the termination. And now we're at that second step where it's in the trainee's queue. And so this is kind of the trainee view here, which most of us aren't going to see, but they're going to receive the very impersonal, as I like to call it, NIH email, and they're going to need to actually log in to ERA Commons, and then it'll say, this is what form you need to fill out. And so they go to the form, and then basically it's that same form that you just saw, but there's going to be a lot of things in here that's already pre-populated, and only things that they can do. Remember that I was just saying that they need to go in and do a scientific report, and they can either type it in here, or they can add a PDF to it. But that is one of the most important things for them to do. And then, of course, if they know their future employment, that's really helpful if they go ahead and populate all that information, because that's going to help you with xTRAIN and your RPPR and your renewal. So and one other thing to remember here is they should always put in an email address, like a Gmail or Yahoo, a permanent email address, not use their UCSD address, because if they're leaving, they're not going to have access to that for very long after they leave. So if you need to get a hold of them for, future years, because you're going to need to track these trainees for another 15 years, you're going to want like a permanent email address. So I always try to encourage the administrators to remember to tell the trainees that. Again, they can save as a draft and come back and finalize it, or they can go ahead and send it and route it back to the PI. And that's what they will do here. And so it's kind of got like this big warning statement, but it's just basically saying, is everything true? You're not, and if you have a payback agreement, if you're a postdoc, what are those consequences? So basically, this is their electronic signature. These are all electronic forms, right? This is their electronic signature. And now, again, we're going back to the PI, and it's going to be in progress PI. So one thing that happens quite often is, what if a trainee doesn't respond? What about if you send them the email notification, you even put a comment in there, whatever, they just don't respond? The system will, if the trainee does not respond, within 14 days, the system will automatically route the termination back to the PI, and then the PI or the delegate needs to restart the process, basically. So it's one of those things you just kind of have to have on your calendar or your tickler file. Okay, I need to follow up with this. I need to make sure the trainee gets their portion done. It can be really challenging if the trainee has already left the university and you can't get a hold of them for whatever reason. They're not checking their UCSD account anymore. And that's why it's very helpful when they do sign up at the ERA Commons, or when they are initially appointed to the training grant, that they're using, that Yahoo or Gmail account. So now it's been routed back to the PI. So now we're going to look at the PI view. So the PI is just going to basically go in there and confirm, go into his terminations and confirm, okay, they did do this. And if everything looks satisfactory, basically they're the ones that are going to be looking at that scientific report and saying, okay, this is good. Now, if everything's okay, they can click and save and route to the business official. So, and now it's going to be in the business official's queue. So it's going to be in progress business official. So as a business official, if you have that capacity, you're going to go in, click on them, right? And it's going to bring you to this screen. Now, the big thing here is you need to verify that we told the agency this person's going to receive $26,352 in stipend. Did they receive that? So that is extremely important. I've had some business officials just bypass this altogether, and it's really important. If we are telling the agency one number, then this is what we should be paying them for whatever reason. So there's different ways of doing this. I know on the campus, if you go in the activity hub, I personally we have internal research service corps reports that I use, and I go in and into the HR, and I actually pull down the distribution of payroll expense and look and see exactly how much this person was paid. And then I cross-check that with xTRAIN. And you can see here that, yes, they were paid $66,600 in our system. And that's exactly how much we told the agency. That's great. Fantastic. Now I can go ahead and route this to the agency. So one of the biggest issues here is and I think you might read between the lines here, is what about if the numbers don't match? And sometimes that's going to happen. I mean, a lot of times that happens, I should say, not sometimes, but a lot of times that doesn't happen. It doesn't come out exactly. Generally speaking, the threshold is under $500. If it's within a $500 variance, say they got paid 66 or 67,000, they got paid over $400. Generally, if it's under $500, it's okay. You can go ahead and route it. It's not exact, but if you wanted to do a direct retro for whatever reason, you could go in and fix it. But if it's under that $500 threshold, it's usually considered okay. Now, I don't know where that policy is, but I know that is I don't want to say policy, but I don't know where it's written, but I know that's the policy. So one of the problems you can have is, as you can tell, right? What about if they don't match? What about if these numbers do not match? So then you're going to have to figure out and do some detective work and some forensic accounting and go, were they overpaid on the NIH side, or were they overpaid or underpaid on our side? Did their appointments start late? So you have to go in and then reconcile those amounts. And so that can be challenging, because what about if they were completely, paid, they were paid like as a salary the whole year, or they were paid a salary for 1 month. And if you recall a couple of weeks ago when I talked about stipend policies, salaries are dispersed with tax deductions. Stipends are dispersed without tax deductions. So if a person is paid incorrectly and you want to go back a couple months, maybe they've already paid taxes, and then you want to do a direct retro to change, from salary to stipend or vice versa. And so it can be very uncomfortable to have these conversations with trainees and say, look, you were overpaid, you were underpaid. I'm sorry, we have to go in and make these changes. So it can be very uncomfortable. I've had to do this many times in the past. And I think if you do it once, then you're never going to want to do it again. So you're always going to want to make sure when you're appointing them that it's for the correct amount. Now, usually, if you run into the incorrect amounts for postdocs, the postdocs for whatever, because there's 7 levels of postdoc, they get appointed at the wrong level. And then you realize that, oh, wait, UCSD paid them at level 2, but I told the agency they were a level 1 or whatever the scenario. So you can see where it can get very dicey here. So it's really important when you're setting them up and you're working with your HR and getting them set up in UC Path that they are paid the correct amount. I can't stress that enough. So again, the business official, if for some reason I have to go back to the I don't know, the research administrator and say, look, these numbers don't match. I need you to do a direct retro. I need you to fix this before I can submit it. And so people don't, it's not a fun thing to do, but it happens. So you can just let it sit in your queue or whatever, but you also need to make sure, on the other hand, someone is fixing this, someone's reconciling this, so you can submit this. So again, it gives you this big warning. Okay, everything is okay. Let's assume that we're going to certify it, route it to the agency, and yay, it's now in the agency's queue. And it's going to say the status is now going to be updated to pending agency review. So I'd like to go through the status for the terminations. So at the top of that box, that picture I showed you, it starts in the in progress PI. It starts in their queue. They route it to the trainee. The trainee enters their scientific report and their employment information. They route it to the business official. And then the business official, once it's reconciled, would route it to the agency. Now, the agency, for whatever reason, they still need to accept it. So they might put in there on hold by agency. Maybe they never got their payback agreement for their postdoc, or they didn't get their permanent residency card or whatever at the time of appointment. So it may stay on hold by agency. And then eventually you're going to want to see that the termination was actually accepted. So it's one of these processes that's going to be on your desk that you have to kind of go in and check and make sure, are all the players doing their job? And is it to the final part of this process? Because you can't just assume, oh, I initiated it, it's done now. No, it's you still have to make sure you get to the point where it's accepted. So there's a couple of other features in here that I wanted to talk about. There's a recall feature. So sometimes you forwarded it to the trainee or whatever for whatever reason, and you're like, oops, I forgot to put the correct whatever in there, so you can recall it. And so there is that way. If it's been routed forward, you could recall it backwards. And the PI and the assistant has the opportunity to do this. Reappointments, I didn't talk about this much last week, but I did want to say it's really just the same appointment process, same as the appointment process. Basically, you have a trainee that's been on there for 1 year, and maybe they're going on to the next year. There's no break in service, and they are going to be reappointed, and there's that option there to reappoint them. So it's very similar, except you just don't, there's a lot of info that you don't have to gather because it's already in there. So but that's just I forgot to touch on that last week, but I just wanted you to know that could come up. A lot of programs, training programs are for 2 years or sometimes for 3 years, but usually I think the standard is for 2 years. So you may see that. Amendments come up, and amendments would be normally initiated by the PI or the delegate. And it's basically once an appointment is submitted and accepted by the agency, then you might have to go in and do an amendment, basically for simple things like a name change or an email, mailing address change. But sometimes you could go in there and say, oh, wait, they were appointed till 6/30/2023, but they actually left 3/31/2023. So we need to go ahead and amend and do an early termination. And another big one would be amendment for a stipend amount. If for whatever reason you go, oh, wait, they weren't appointed at the correct amount, you could change that. Again, and that has that whole routing system, the same thing. You have to go from the PI to the trainee, they have to approve the amendment, and then it goes, gets routed back to that agency. So it's a little funny. So this is just an overview. Again, I like my visuals of how that termination process works. And the big difference here between the terminations and the appointments is that in progress BO, making sure it gets reconciled. Again, the R25s, they don't have the step of the business official. However, someone should still be reconciling that amount and making sure that that's how much the person was actually paid. I can't stress that enough, because I see this happen so much that for whatever reason, they weren't paid correctly, and it needs to be corrected. So again, this is always on the website. I'll have this on the website today, the recording of this, and I have the slides. Just kind of talked a little fast there, so it's only 12:30. Does anybody have any questions, or does anybody have a termination right now that they're working on that they need help with?
Jill, I have a question.
Sure.
So I am, as you know, a fund manager in the RSC, and I was sent an email by our program coordinator, Nova, you know who I'm talking about. And she said that I would need access and xTRAIN to review the termination notices, and then I would need to get access. But I'm signed in and it looks like I have access. If I show you my screen, would you be able to tell me, like?
Yeah, we may have to get you business official access. I might have to assign you the business official role, but go ahead and show your screen.
Okay.
And I'll log in myself and see, but yeah, go ahead and show your screen so we can see. Okay, so can you scroll down just a little bit? And then who's the person you're trying to terminate?
She just said they were going to be working on, I think, terminating this Tara Allen soon, that she just wanted to make sure I had access, so whenever it was time.
So I think what she meant is that you assigned a business official, and so you may not have that role, but actually if you let me share my screen, and I am just logging in right now. Yeah, hold on one second. There we go. So if I go to admin, account management. Try to do, oh, there. We need some like Jeopardy music here. Haley, did I spell your last name wrong?
Freeeman.
Freeeman. Oh, no, okay, so now I just made the mistake to not search just within our organizations, and I was looking into. Yeah, exactly, I know. Okay, let's see. I don't know why you didn't come up the first time. So why aren't you in our system, Haley?
I'm not sure.
Do you have a different last name?
No, that's my name.
So did you work at another university before this?
I did.
Okay, let's see. Let's pull it up and we'll see. I bet you're still, have you not been in here since you started?
Yeah, I've been in here.
Okay, so this is weird.
I've done several things.
Okay, so let's see. I have a feeling you're still affiliated with your old institution, but pending affiliation.
Yeah, that's my old place.
Yeah, so we need to do, I don't know. So this is something beyond my, I believe that you need to go back to them and they need to change it, change your affiliation. Because I don't know if I can do that.
Okay.
So
When I click on
I can
when I
add,
click my name at the top right hand corner of my screen, it does say current institution South or University of California in San Diego. So I don't know.
for where? Up here?
Oh, hold on. Let me show you. Like on the xTRAIN part, I can go back up there to my admin though.
That's interesting. Do you need me to stop sharing?
Here.
Oh, it does. So that's
Yeah.
really interesting.
It's got
So that's okay. So you have, this is two different accounts. This is H Freeman 1, and that says Haley Freeman. So do you have accounts?
I mean that was the one I had there, but I've always used this one now that I've been here.
So two accounts didn't show up, but it's interesting. So I don't think I can add you as a business official if, oh, maybe, huh? Okay, because I am adding you as UCSD. But we should also add you as a role as of assist.
Yeah, it says AO assist or ASST, I guess.
Okay, so now you should have gotten an email.
Okay.
Because it doesn't look like you have the affiliation to UCSD. So these are like these weird, quirky things that come up.
Yeah, that's really weird.
I mean, there's always something like it makes, you do like, you look at that process, you look at that picture and you're like, oh, this should be easy. And then there's always like these stumbling blocks. So, yeah. So hopefully that will fix it. You'll probably get an email.
Okay.
But it's interesting, like, I wonder if I did, because now you have roles and affiliation, because before it said what affiliation pending or something.
Oh, that's really weird.
Yeah. So can you log in now and can we look at it?
On xTRAIN?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me on.
Log out and log back in or whatever, because it's gonna.
All right, let me sign in.
Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, give me just a sec. Let me get over here.
Yeah, it's took a while. Yeah, that was weird, huh?
Yeah, very weird.
Okay, there you go. Now go ahead and yeah, scroll down to Tara Allen and click the ellipsis or whatever ellipsis is. Okay, so she hasn't initiated it yet, it looks like, but she's going to probably.
Yes.
Okay, so once she does, then we can really come back and see, is it as first of all, can she choose you to be a business official? And if she does, is it gonna like show up in your queue? So that's
Okay.
the main thing. Then once you get to that point, if you want me to, I can walk you through this,
Okay.
sometimes it's a bit easier. Especially, because you're in the RSC, so I can I
Yes.
use an RSC report to reconcile versus the campus reports, so.
Okay.
Yeah, oh, good, well, I'm glad we got something fixed today, right? I mean, sort of,
Yes. Thank you.
so, do you need any other help with, that grant or anything?
I think that's it right now. We're still waiting on our next award to come. So I probably
No.
will once we get our new award.
Yeah, for the September one, it renews September 1, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so, okay, cool, well, I'm glad, I feel like we accomplished something today.
Yes, thank you.
Does anybody else have anything? If not, you guys can log off or whatever, or I'll be online if you guys have other questions for me, but I think I'll stop recording for now.
Jill,
Uh-huh.
before you stop recording, Irene had a question that she said if I had an opportunity, she'd like me to ask, and if we can't address it today, maybe next week.
Sure, what's up?
This is about the contracts. Is this not a good time to do this?
Oh, UAW stuff?
Mhm.
Yeah, I really
Award
don't-
letters.
Yeah, I really don't have much of an answer for you on that one. That's
Okay.
really because that's kind of that's really the graduate what is it, the graduate office, grad division is
Oh,
really
GEPA.
yeah. What is your exact question about
Okay,
the
I have to read it to you because I'm not sure I understand all of it. She said,
Okay.
our practice has been that when students are selected for our training grants, we send them a notice letter about their selection. We plan to continue this practice, and we need to know if this would be in conflict with the now required, quote, award appointment letter that must be sent out, quote, quarterly to fellows as part of the negotiated contract.
Yeah, that would be a great question for somebody in grad, like you're talking, yours are pre-docs, right?
Correct.
So I would contact, like, I know Tiffany Zaworski is out. And I don't, do you have another contact over there, like Courtney?
Flow helps us a lot.
Okay, so maybe I would pose that to her.
Okay.
That's one of those, there's so many murky things going on that
Yep.
they haven't set the policy yet. I mean, our policy, we know what the UAW policy is now, but we don't know what 100% what ours is. So that would be a great question for them. And I'd love to know the answer to that, because that's very interesting. It's true, like, we don't know. And I think there's just things that they're just trying to figure out. And so they may not have an answer for you, but they're gonna need to get you one.
Okay. Well, that's good. We'll let you know if we hear anything, and you let us know if you hear anything, and
yeah,
there. But I just want to add what someone was saying earlier. These sessions are so helpful. Really appreciate your time and effort. I'm realizing there's so many little nuance.
so many things. There's so many things to remember. Then there's so many things that you do like once every 5 years, once a year.
Yep.
It's like I honestly, like, it's hard to remember it all.
Yeah, yeah. And these are excellent. And I really appreciate your time and effort that you put into these. And it's wonderful to have them go back and be able to go back and look at the videos and the slides. Very,
Oh,
very
good.
helpful.
Well, it's
And
my
yeah,
pleasure.
yeah, looking forward to learning more. And this is a great time for me because this is when I'm appointing, new people, and it's good
good.
to go over all these little points. And
Yeah, I was trying to organize my schedule, that, the calendar. I still have a lot of dates like to be determined what I'm going to teach on, but like next, like January, I think I'm going to do like all RPPRs because a lot of RPPRs are due in March.
oh yeah,
That we'll have that refresher like right before, or talk about tax implications, in February before people are all getting their W-2s, and then they all of a sudden they don't get one for their stipend, so.
yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Well,
well,
I'm
it was
I'm
good
gonna hop
talking to
off
you.
right now. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Really appreciate it, Jill.
My pleasure. Have a good afternoon.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jill, this is Katie. I have a question if you still have.
Yeah.
So in my department, I only do pre-award, but I am the BO for our department.
Oh, okay.
because even though, because I already had the BO role from when I was in RSC, and
Mhm.
then our post-award fund managers that manage the T32s, RSC wouldn't give them BO roles, because like they said, like, because I already had it, because we already had BOs, they wouldn't add more to our department. Can you help? Because basically I'm having to go back to the post-award fund managers, asking them to reconcile the stipends, and then I have to approve the termination
And you
notice.
have to stamp your name on it.
Yeah, which is done.
I suspect, anyway, I can add them as BO if you want me to.
Okay, it's right now it's just Kristen Walker, but we have a
Oh, I know Kristen.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't mind keeping it, like we have one I have one right now for an F31 that like that fund manager doesn't need to be a BO because he's not going to be dealing with it really regularly. But for Kristen, like she absolutely should have that because she's managing like all of our T32s. So.
Okay. What happened? Oh. My internet's going. Okay. Oh, can you hear me, Katie?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, it's my internet goes unstable. Okay, so I'm gonna add business official for her. Did you want me to change anybody else?
She's the only one right now that's
Okay.
managing training grants. So I think for now that's it. We have a new senior fund manager that's starting in a couple of weeks that I don't know if they will end up with one of them, but
okay,
I'll let you know.
Okay, yeah, there's always a ton, that business official list, there's always a ton of people there. I have never had a restriction put on that, like, oh, you can't have more than one business official in one department, but I don't know whoever told you that before, but you know what, if I get in trouble for giving Kristen BO access, whatever, but in my opinion, you should not be signing off on something that you haven't reconciled personally. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Right. I don't like that I have to, I have to ask them to do that and then sign off on it like that. I don't think that's
I trust Kristen with my life, but I don't think it's fair to you to put your name on that, because if it comes back to you, do you know what I mean?
Right.
You're gonna go, I don't remember because I didn't actually reconcile.
Right. I just have the email that says like, yes, it's correct or whatever. Which I don't, I don't like that. So, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, cool.
But also thank you so much for doing these, because I still do, I like a lot of the T32 stuff because I'm doing the RPPRs and I do the renewals and that kind of stuff. So it's really helpful.
I still remember doing that Hamilton one.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
We
I
still
have
have
never
a couple
submitted
of
a
years
grant. I
before-
have never submitted a grant at 4:59 and 40 seconds before. I mean,
with 2 blank documents in it because he
yeah.
didn't do everything and it still got awarded without a resubmission.
I know. I was like,
It's-
I don't know. I know. I will never forget that, Bruce.
Same.
Anyway, okay, well, have it. Thanks for coming. I appreciate the good feedback, and yeah, let me, always reach out if you have anything, during the week.
Okay, we're gonna start his, because he's GMS, Hamilton's RPPR is due in November, but last year it took us like 3 months, so I'm starting that soon. So I may have questions for you.
Oh, yeah, and I do have like an RPPR checklist, which is really helpful, to like know like what you need to, what your role is, what Bruce's role is.
Yeah. I remember I pulled all that stuff like from the, your T32 pulse page last year. I have to remember how to do it because it's been a year now.
Yeah,
And
I know.
our
I
other
heard
one
that.
is Jean Wang, and she's so like, she does so much herself.
I love her.
Yes, she's really amazing. Whereas Bruce really, doesn't.
Yeah, he's a little bit more, his working style is very different.
Yeah. So, yeah, I will probably have questions for you coming up in the next few weeks or months.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jill.
You're welcome. Have a good afternoon.
You too.